Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday. It's June 6th. As you can tell, it's already a really sunny day again. The sun does come directly from the east at my windows. I hadn't realized how well lined up the building was with the sun line when we initially looked at it, but it really is. I don't know if I'm impressed or just dumbfounded. So in the morning, like this, the sun comes directly in. And then in the evening, it's actually kind of neat. I'll have the windows, the blinds open in the evening, and I'll get what's almost like a morning sun coming in, because the sun, as it drops down in the west, it bounces off of all the windows in the building across the street and shines right in here. So it's like I have two sets of pretty bright sun at times. Of course, the setting sun brightness doesn't last as long as the morning, but it's kind of nice. The downside, of course, is my little patio here gets way too warm for me to be sitting on. As you know, I'm not one that gets along with the sun very well. I get pretty nauseous pretty quick. I'm enjoying what the screen's doing here. Sorry for the brightness and the fading. I just have the natural sunlight literally coming through the blinds this morning. I don't have any other lights on inside. All right, so this morning I want to share a pretty thing that arrived yesterday. Check these cuties out. So these are by Fugui. Fugawi. I really want to know exactly how they want to be pronounced. So I had seen these when they first came out, and I was like, oh, those are cute. But I don't know, life, I just never ordered a pair. And so a week or so ago, pair popped up on one of the trading groups. Someone had bought them. They arrived, and she decided they just weren't right for her. Couldn't use them. I think time period was different. That's my suspicion. And I'm like, yay! Because she was selling them for basically a third the list price. She wasn't even sure what size they were. Because, here, take a look. There's a 10, there's a 9, there's a C. A few other numbers. And I was like, okay. So she compared them to her feet. And I'm like, all right, let's give them a go. For $30, let's give them a go. And they arrived. And now here's the thing is, I didn't think these were coming until Monday, according to, my delivery digest. And I'm like, okay. So then I get this little ping, like, oh, in the mailbox. I'm like, okay, goody, yay. And I go down last night to pick up the mail. And I pull out the box, and it's, really crushed. Really, really crushed. At first I thought, okay, it's going to be the fabric that I'm waiting for, that last piece of fabric. And I'm like, no, it's a box. And I looked at the name. I'm like, that's the shoe person. And so I'm like, okay, when you get a box that's that crushed, you open it. Well, you take pictures and then you open it. So I opened it, and I'm like, yay, shoes. And because they are squishy, they're fine. Put them right on. And this is my first experience with straight lasts. And I gotta say, they're not too bad. One thing I'm gonna have to do is label my left and right once I wear them for a little bit. And I'm looking inside and realizing I can't tell which one was left and which one was right. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to definitely label which one's left and right. I think eventually my big toe will tell me. So those are those little goodies that showed up. All right, so the other thing I did yesterday, finally in the afternoon, evening, I got to work on the little hat that I've been doing. I'm going through phases with the whole sewing thing. And I know it's the whole pandemic stuff going on and being stuck inside. So, like, when I'm really heavily sewing, I can work on 2 or 3 pieces in a day and really rotate these through in 2.5 days. This is day 4 for this hat, and I want to decorate it. But it's like I would sew a little, and then I'd be distracted. Or I'll sew a little, and I would yawn. And I was like, and I don't like getting like that. I like to just like really enjoy all of the sewing. And not that I didn't enjoy sewing this one. It's just I didn't get through it as quick. And it's got some really cute characteristics. The flare on this brim is really cute, and I like it. It just took me forever to do it. And so I do want to decorate it. Now my first thought last night was this antique velvet ribbon. Just a really cute velvet ribbon. And I know I love the combination of black on this copper. And then I was going to pair this with one of those vintage plumes. Then, when I was getting the ribbon out, I remembered I have this. This is an antique ribbon. It's really pretty. Come on. Oh, they taped the ends together. Interesting. Come on. And that's really cute too. I was like, uh-oh. That's really cute. So I gotta decide which way I want to go here. And then I'm not sure what I would pair this ivory ribbon with. I thought maybe some of the little peacocks I've got here. Come on. It looks like they all want to come out. Come on. Woo. I forgot I had actually had these. So another option. Oh, yeah. I kind of like the peacock with the copper. But I almost think I'd like the peacock with the copper with the black better. So this is kind of like the process I end up playing with as I go through sometimes. So, let's get just a balance in there. Come on. And then get my hand out of the way. So there's the peacock with the copper and the cream, the ivory. And I like that. And I do have some other peacock feathers coming from a friend's bird. Oh, I really kind of like that. All right, I think we might be going with the black velvet and the peacocks. Yeah. Now this is an older, not just older, velvet ribbon. One of the antique ones that I have. And I kind of baby those. I do not like using antique ribbon for bonnet ties. I discourage people from doing that, usually quite a bit. We'll occasionally use them for decorations. I didn't realize I had this many in this envelope. All right, we're gonna have to leave them out. The big thing is don't let the little Miss Clara get into them. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, antique ribbons on bonnets. I discourage it from them from being used for ties because they will shatter. But I can occasionally justify their use on the body of a bonnet or on a hat where they're not going to have any pressure on them. It's usually the tying that shatters them. All right, so I know I've got some more questions over here on my tablet. So what I'm doing now is when I look at the notifications list for WordPress with questions that I'm going to use for this, I'm waiting and approving them as I answer them. That way I can keep track, because they have a little yellow bubble when they're waiting to be answered and a little blue bubble when I've answered them. All right. So I really love your hat. It looks pretty Edwardian, but it's not an Edwardian hat. Okay. That was the one from yesterday. So this is a very similar style. So yeah, it's a Civil War era hat. The differences are going to be size is a big one. Civil War era, mid-19th century, so 1850s, 1860s hats are smaller in proportion than the Edwardian hats. The crown only rises 1.5 inches to 2 inches for most of these. Clara, you're causing a mess. And you're, yeah, down, please. Down, please. Thank you. Okay. She almost, like, messed up my approvals here. Okay, so the crown here only rises 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. On this one, it is a tapered crown. It's got just a very slight taper to it. Most of the Edwardian pieces that I'm aware of, I don't really get into that era, have more of a straight side, from what I understand. The brim on this is almost always going to be shaped for your 1850s and 1860s. Your 1860s pieces are smaller generally than your 1850s pieces. They had much wider brims at that era, at that time. The wider brims kind of corresponded with the layered aspect of the skirts. So these are definitely wired into shape. Okay. All right, so that's that one. Approve. All right. And I know there was another hat one on here. Where'd it go? Okay, so I didn't realize I have some watchers that don't know about what I do millinery wise, because I have a question here. Is it handmade or did I get it from a store? So each of my pieces are handmade. I make them from straw plate or braid. Let me grab these. So this is braid. This is a gray, a silvery gray, and this is a walnut. Okay. A walnut's all spoken for. And so the long strips, I sew them basically in ovals and circles to get started. So the top of this hat is oval. The back of most bonnets are circular, and I just sew them by hand. I don't use a machine. And I work my way out, okay? So the hats I work from the top out. From the bonnets I work from the back forward. And I use antique millinery blocks. So antique hat blocks and antique bonnet blocks. Most of my bonnet blocks are a plaster Some people call them chalkware, but they're a plaster. I have a rather rustic looking bonnet block over here. They're a little heavy, so I'm not bringing them over. That one's wood. That one's my earlier one. It's the earliest one I have, I believe. That one makes really nice 1840s, 1850s, early 1850s bonnets that are the shallower rise. A lot of people like to call them a cottage bonnet. It does a nice cottage bonnet for early 1860s too. Has a really nice circular brim to it. So yeah, that's what I do. So I make each of my hats and my bonnets by hand. Some of them I decorate and some of them I don't. Depends on my mood. Let's see. Trying to do all the hat ones right now. Museum. Okay, so I have a question about what ginger beer is. I think it's better a question for some of my cook friends. My understanding, okay, it's basically like a soda or a pop nowadays. But historically, I believe you take the ginger and then you need some yeast and there's some fermentation that happens. So at one point it was, I guess, slightly alcoholic. So you let the fermentation happen and it becomes a drink. That's all I know. In a modern sense, ginger beer is a less sweet, sharper, fizzier, and I think more gingery drink than ginger ale. I think there's a difference between them. I'm sure some manufacturers out there make them very close at this point. But I like it because it does settle my stomach. All right. I did approve that one. When did I start going to the Genesee Country Village Museum? That's a big question. I'm going to hit pause for a second because I need a tissue. All right, tissue. Allergies are not fun this year. So when did I start going to the Genesee Country Village Museum? I would have been there first when I was rather little. The museum opened when I was wee little. Museum opened in 76. My grandmother worked there for 27 years. She was an interpreter, a quilter, a rug hooker. So my first visits, 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. Of course, there was the regular trip with school. In this area, most 4th graders go to the museum as a field trip. I started volunteering there when I was 11. One of my very first volunteer events was for the 4th of July. Every year there's a parade in the village. I'm realizing the lighting's getting bad. That's not helping. There's a parade in the village, and so one of my first volunteer tasks was as one of the 13 maidens. So there were 13 girls representing each of the first 13 states. We wore white Regency sorta style dresses with these sashes around our waist, and we carried red, white, and blue flowers. I think one year we had flowers in our hair, And so we would walk around the village as part of the parade. And then we would sit on the steps of the town hall, and there were speeches and toasts. And it was horribly hot on those stone steps. And it was like nearly noon when we were doing this, and the glaring sun. So I remember being very hot. And the toasts would like splash down on us. It's changed a bit since then. That particular, like there's the parade, and then there's some speeches, but they're not in the same spot, and they're not in the same time of day, and we're not sitting on the steps melting away. It's done a little bit differently now at the museum. There's actually several things to see throughout the day for the 4th. I think that that very first 4th of July for me is really what kind of caught me, caught my love of doing this aspect of history. I remember my parents dropped me off at the front gate. So you come into the parking lot, where, you know, all the cars park in the parking lot, but then there's this little access road and a gate, and it said, "Do not enter." And I was so excited because I got to enter. And off I went down that road. So the road goes by the great meadow, through a bunch of trees into the village. And I had to find my way toward Hovey. And I was so excited. And I needed to find Marge Sharp. And at the time, I was terrified of Marge Sharp. Oh my goodness. Here I am, 11, and I don't know why she just scared the living daylights out of me. I'm laughing because as I got to know her as an adult, she was not scary. She was fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. But she scared me so much. So that day was an awesome day. I remember going to the picnic, which was kind of like a strawberry social for me because I get down to Hosmer's basement. In the basement, there's that's where the kitchen is, and they have all the food lined up around the well, and here I am, vegetarian already, and I'm trying to figure out what can I eat, what can I not eat, and there's all these people that I don't know, and they're so much older than me. So I was trying to pick out what I could have, and I had like a lot of strawberries and a lot of pickles. So I lived on strawberries and pickles that day. If you come to events with me now, you know that's not very different than what I do. Strawberries and pickles are a mainstay for me. One thing I do know is I didn't drink enough water. So like a worry of dehydration is setting me from that age for events. I had my little ticket for my one free drink at the depot, but I didn't bring any other money with me. I didn't know I needed to drink as much as I really needed to drink. So all I had to drink that day, because I didn't have a mug, was my one drink of soda up at the depot. And I remember I'd pushed off getting the drink because I did the lunch thing, and then I was like, oh, it's so far to go up to the depot and then come all the way back for the parade, and I was all worried about the timing, and I didn't want to be late. Being late has always been a big deal for me. So I did not have enough to drink that day, and I felt it. So it was the only bad part of the day. So now making sure I have something to drink from and that I'm bringing something to drink has a level of internalized importance that I'm not sure if everybody else feels. So it's a big deal for me. So if from where I'm sitting, I can see my kitchen, because it's, one giant space in this apartment. And up at the top of my cabinets are my pottery pieces from the museum. And I have a silly number of pitchers. So I've got my gallon, and I've got 2 half gallons, and then I got a bunch of little guys. And then I have a lot of mugs, and I have a lot of glasses. So I can bring quite the assortment if need be to events. I try to make sure I drink enough. Oddly enough, I think I drink better at events than I do at home. Like, I get going on a sewing project or something and I forget to drink, and I know I'm not drinking enough here. But if I'm at the museum and my water source is within close proximity to my workspace, I make sure that my pitcher or my glass is full at almost all times. It becomes a priority to me. If it's a very busy day and people are continuously coming through, it's very important to me to make sure that's full. If you ever come into, when I do like the millinery shop or something on a busy day, on a hot day, I'm often asking you, are you drinking enough water? I ask guests all the time. I'm like, are you drinking enough water? And I tell them where the water is. I even ask the little kids. And I think that's because of the earlier experience as a kid. You don't always know that that's what's wrong or that it's wrong. And sometimes, like, the adults get so busy with everything, they don't always realize just how hot it can get and how important water is. So yeah, it's become a thing. Have you drinking your water? So yeah, I guess that's it for today because we're pushing 30 minutes. All right, I will see you all tomorrow. Hope you're enjoying the glorious sunshine, and see you. Bye-bye.